Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you. We finally made it to the doldrums of the IndyCar offseason, Justin. Beautiful fall day here in Indiana.
Finally feels like fall.
Yes, finally. And with that said, it is time to congratulate and interview our winner of the 2025 New Track Record Podcast League, Fantasy League on GridRivals, and it is Kory, who, before we talk about anything else with you, Kory, I have to know, the team name Random Split Era Team of the Week is just outstanding. How did you come up with that?
It's the Random Split Era Driver of the Week is my favorite part of the show, so.
I'm sure Justin finds that very entertaining.
He was already the favorite in my mind before the season even started.
Same. I was like, that is the best name on the list. There are a lot of good names.
Yeah. Down the stretch, Kory, we were rooting for you to win just because of the team.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
So let's dive into fantasy talk first. What was your strategy? Was it just pick Alex Blow for 5 races, pray he doesn't win the race, you can't have him, and then go on from there?
That was pretty much it, yeah. They switched the format this year, and I feel like it was way more difficult just to pick 6 drivers within that budget, and then with the contracts kind of locking them out in the next race. And it's tricky because, Indy was, if I remember right, Indy was the 6th race. So if you sign somebody for 5 races at the start of the year, they're locked out for the 500. So I had to kind of think about that at the beginning of the year. But, the biggest thing was to just hop off the New Garden bandwagon as soon as I could.
Smart. So did you have Palou from race 1 and then not have him for the Indy 500, or did you pick him up after?
No, I think I dropped him for Long Beach and then re-signed him from there on, so I would have him for the 500. But I definitely had him for the 25th place in Detroit.
Was there anyone outside of Palou, Kory, that you said, I have to have him as much as possible? Or conversely, I am not putting this person in my lineup at any point?
I tried to have Passo in there as much as I could. He's usually up towards the front, especially on the ovals. As far as, people I didn't pick, I tried to avoid the Rahal cars.
Smart man.
Didn't pick Stingray Rob a whole lot. But it was tough. There are a lot of good drivers down at that end of the grid, and I ended up actually with Callum Ilott on my team a lot, and he had that 24th to 6th at Laguna that I got a ton of points for. So thanks, Callum.
Was there any sort of strategy you figured out, especially in the new league, that you'd be willing to share? Maybe not your secret sauce, but something that could be helpful for players next year.
I try to pick my last driver first. So, look at the bottom of the list and pick somebody from the bottom, 3 or 4, and then to figure out, my middle drivers. And, if you've got Palou, of course, you're pretty much set at the top. But I like to start at the bottom and kind of work backwards.
Interesting. So you pick all your driver, and then the top one, effectively, it's whatever money you have left. Because I know a lot of people will go the opposite way.
Yeah, and that's, I ended up with a couple of, I had to pick Devlin a couple of times and Stingray a couple of times and just wasn't getting a lot of points. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to start by picking my bottom driver, and that way I'll have a little flexibility in the middle,
That's so smart. I always picked, who's the most expensive that I'm willing to pay for, go from there, and then you kind of realize, oh, I'm out of money, I got to make some changes. But if you go with your last pick first, I love that. That's a great strategy for next year.
My strategy was, oh crap, the race starts in 10 minutes. I need to set my lineup. And I think once I actually missed it. But no, it's good. It did add some strategy this year with the grid rival format. So it was appreciated, I think, by some and not liked by others. It was our biggest field that we've had. Every year it keeps growing. So every year it gets more and more difficult to win the darn thing. Kory, let's get into your love of IndyCar, where it came from, when you got into it. Just give us the Kory and IndyCar story.
Sure. So my dad is from Greenfield, Indiana. So he grew up going to the race in the 70s and 80s and stuff. And then my first IndyCar race was the 1999 Indy 500. I was supposed to wait till I was 10 years old, which would have been the next year. But I begged and begged Dad to go because it was going to be Arie Luyendyk's last 500. It didn't turn out to be, but Arie was my all-time favorite coming up, and so I wanted to make sure I got to see him race at least once. And then I've missed a couple over the years, but this year will be my 25th Indy 500. So
wow,
nice.
Yeah. We sit over in turn 3, in basically one section from the furthest that you can get towards turn 3 over there, and maybe 6 or 8 rows from the top. They're really good seats. You can see all the way from the exit of turn 2 all the way around to almost the pit wall. So, I feel like the drivers kind of have this sense that there's no stands back there, and so nobody's looking. So, you'll see some pretty egregious blocking or some, some wild moves on the outside going into 3. They're pretty underrated seats, I would say.
I would agree as someone who sits in kind of the middle of turn 4, as close as you can get to Northwest Vista, but not in Northwest Vista, really high up. Probably, 4 to 6 rows from the top of that section in that stand. Yeah, you get to see a lot of crashes in that area. For sure. So, I've been to several races out here at Texas Motor Speedway over the years. I saw Kenny Brack's accident in person, which was wild. To see that little capsule of the cockpit just spinning down the track, I couldn't believe my eyes. And went out to Nashville one year, not recently. Back Kanan won the race, to give you an idea of when that was. Went to Portland a couple times. Went to COTA the one year that the IndyCar went down there, and then I've got my tickets for Arlington, so that'll be my first street race. Yeah, so I was definitely going to ask about Arlington since you're in the DFW Metroplex area. What's kind of the excitement level, the feel, the promotion for this event? I mean, we've seen stuff kind of nationally pop up, like the ad at Cowboy Stadium ahead of the Cowboys and Green Bay Packers game, but kind of what's the vibe in the Metroplex for that event?
I think people are really excited. I've had a lot of people, just people I know casually or professionally who know that I'm a race fan that have asked me, hey, what's this thing I'm hearing about going on over by the stadiums? And, I'm trying to do my part and get everybody excited, but it does seem like word is getting out, and, I think people are excited to check it out and see something a little different, maybe something more like, the F1 Vegas event as opposed to something where you're, sitting in the grandstand at Texas Motor Speedway.
Will it have the hype of the Houston races?
That was a little before my time. I'm going to be honest. I don't quite remember. But, I think it'll definitely be a better track than some of the old Houston layouts.
When we get onto on-track excitement, Kory, do you have a favorite driver? You have a favorite team? You have a favorite driver to hate? What are we looking at?
Pato's my favorite right now. I've been rooting for him pretty much since he got to Indy Lights. Arie Luyendyk was always my favorite coming up, and I grew up during the split era, and we were an IRL household, so I rooted for guys like Mark Disbor and Craig Ray and Jeff Ward, and some of the short track guys like Jimmy Kite and Donnie Beechler, and so. But I honestly don't really hate any of the drivers. There are some that I'm not crazy about. I don't care too much for Graham Rahal. He's a little whiny for me. Kyle Kirkwood, I think, is maybe a tad on the arrogant side, but I don't root against him or anything like that.
He says that a house, they were an IRL house. It popped in my head. Those like plates you can get like house divided.
Yes.
IU and Purdue.
We should do that for IRL carts.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think anybody has ever had a house divided car plate that had IRL and cart split down the middle? Oh man, the rivalries back and forth.
And actually, what kind of cemented the whole thing was Dad and I actually went to the 2001 kart race that didn't happen.
Oh,
yeah, we were there early and saw some pace cars go around for a while, and then word started to trickle out that we're not going to see a race today.
So that cemented that you were an IRL household, obviously.
Absolutely. And you may recall the I think it was in 2016. We had the 3-month rain delay between the first half and the second half.
I went to the first date and couldn't make the other two.
Okay, so I went to the second date, and he was giving away $1 hot dogs and free T-shirts. Well, all those free T-shirts were the leftover 2001 Kart Firehawk.
Oh, no way.
No way. That's amazing.
Yep.
That's so
phenomenal.
Great. So obviously you've gone to Texas Motor Speedway. You mentioned some of your races. Is there a favorite track that you want to get to, or a race that you want to get to on the IndyCar schedule, past, present, or future?
Oh, I'd love to go to Milwaukee. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Long Beach would be really cool too. Road America. As far as my favorite, I mean Indy, obviously. I've never seen a road course race out there though, so that might be interesting.
I'll tell you a secret. It's not unless it rains.
You're not missing anything.
You're not missing much. It's a fun event to be around the atmosphere of IMS, but in terms of on-track action, that's not what you go for. Now, there have been some better ones in recent years.
Well, yes, but
I mean, this year with the Graham Rahal and Palou, right, was good, and a couple years ago, it always seems to involve Graham Rahal in terms of being entertaining, but he does not win in the end.
I mean, before that, it was in the rain.
Yes,
with Simon Pagenaud.
Yeah, and then you had Herta a couple years after that as well in the rain. But those are the true highlights of that event. I would recommend Milwaukee. Great city to visit, great track, great event. I hope it goes well going back from 1 to 2 races next year. So I also have to ask. So obviously, you grew up around the Indy 500, growing up, the greater Indianapolis area, all that. How did you make that transition from being an Indy 500 fan to an IndyCar fan overall? Because I think that's also another kind of question I'm always curious about in terms of getting into motorsports.
Oh, I may have given you the wrong impression. My dad grew up in Greenfield, but I've actually lived in the Dallas area my whole life.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, just as a kid, taking me to the track all the time, and that really hooked me on the 500. And then, I guess at some point I just, I realized, hey, if they're running at Texas too, I bet there are other races. I should probably look into that.
If more people were like you, I wonder if there's more races than the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, right? I would say 65%, 75% don't even know, besides the road course race, which is a shame.
Yeah, right. Kory, are you interested in any other racing series? Is it purely IndyCar, or do you like other ones?
I don't keep up with NASCAR too much. I casually follow Formula One. I mean, honestly, I'll just listen to Hinge and Rossi to find out what happened in the race. But I did go to the first NASCAR race out at Texas Motor Speedway, and the only thing I can remember is it was extremely long and extremely loud and extremely cold.
Fascinating. Speaking of podcasts, how did you find out about us? How did you get hooked up with New Track Record?
I don't honestly remember if
you lost a bet.
I found you the first time, but I remember I started listening right around the time that Justin declared TK not to be a legend.
Yes. That would have been winter of 2019.
Gosh, that long ago? 6 years ago?
Yes.
They're like, who's this idiot? I
gotta
find out who this moron is. Tune in. However you find us, we don't care.
Yes. So let's talk some IndyCar topics. Do you think Honda's back in 2027? And Chevy, for that matter?
Boy, I really hope so. The fact that they had the Japanese driver that's supposed to be hooked up with Sato testing the other day leads me to believe that maybe they're not quite as out as they might end, but it would be a real shame to see Honda go, especially when they were the only supplier for so long. I mean, it would just be a real shame to be down to one engine supplier.
Going into next year, for championship purposes, are you taking the defending champ or the field?
Tough call. With the same car and largely the same schedule, it's going to be hard to beat Palou. But I think if anybody can do it, it'd be Pato.
And a follow-up question, what happens first? You reach the age to start collecting Social Security, or we have a new car in IndyCar.
Yeah.
Supposedly it's
coming.
coming.
Be a toss-up. I'd like to at least, see a rendering or something, proof that this thing's going to happen.
Yeah, that'd be nice. You would hope by Indy, right?
Yes, I
should
would
be on
hope
track
that we
by
see
Indy, right?
something.
You would think.
It is
really nice
shocking.
if we could have them on display out behind the pagoda like they did for the DW12, way back when.
Is there a driver coming up? You mentioned you kind of followed Pato back when he was in the series formerly known as Indy Lights. Moving forward, that's kind of where I first kind of followed Pato, and I remember seeing him at Barber after he had won the race, congratulating him. Is there a driver coming up, whether he's in Lights now or moving up to IndyCar, that you kind of have your eye on, like this kid's going to be a future star?
Well, I think Miles Rowe for sure has a future in the 500. I'd like to see him have a couple wins on some of the twisty tracks, just to kind of round out his resume. But I like Callum Hedge from New Zealand. He seems like a quick guy and a funny kid. I really like Michael D'Orlando too. He got to hop in towards the end of the year and had some really good showings, but he's one of those kids that's had success all the way up the ladder, and it just seems like he hasn't been able to secure the sponsorship to really lock himself in. But I think if somebody puts him in the seat for the full year, he'd do a good job.
Which comes first? Mexico City race confirmed, a third OEM confirmed, or we get to see testing of a new car on track?
Probably new car testing, unfortunately. I am excited about Mexico. The Mexico City track is a really, really cool track, and I'm sure people would show up to see Pato. But yeah, it sounds like there are more complications there than we may know about.
Hell, I'd like to confirm a second OEM. I don't know.
Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, a first would be a good start.
When you look at the going back to the name of your team, when you go back to the illustrious list of random split era drivers of the week, and you mentioned some in terms of guys that you watched race at Texas, is there a favorite random split era driver of the week for you, sir?
Oh man. Tough call. There have been so many great ones over the years. Maybe Mike Shank. Yeah, I feel like that's a good one. His one start in 1997.
Yeah, especially for me and Caleb, who didn't remember him driving. So
I definitely didn't remember until you guys
right?
talked about it.
So no, yeah, we learn something every week, and eventually we're going to run out. I keep saying that, and then I just keep finding guys. So
well, you found the hack with the 2008 Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, where that was technically a Champ Car event that counted toward IndyCar Series points.
Yes, so we should have a stockpile of those guys, but at some point we're going to have to find another feature. But maybe it's the random split era team of the week. We'll just steal Kory's idea, or his namesake, for sure.
Kory, before we let you go, first, what is the biggest problem facing IndyCar in your mind, and what is kind of the solution to that?
Oh, man, put me on the spot. Boy, biggest problem. Right now, honestly, I'm a little concerned about charters and the car count moving forward. It seems like before these came into place, you'd have, Ray Hall pull out a fourth car for Yuri Vips, or, McLaren run a fourth car for somebody, or, I like seeing that kind of thing. And I think, somebody like Mike Shank's team that showed up and did 6 races and then did 10 races and then did the whole season. And, there's nothing wrong with that approach. Honestly, I think it's kind of smart. And I think the charters are kind of limiting people from being able to do that. And then, the other part of that is, so race day is my favorite day of the year, but bump day is my second favorite day. I love bump day. I'll go back and watch old bump days on YouTube sometimes just for fun. And 34 cars is kind of a real bummer. You'd like to see at least 35 or 36. And, doesn't seem very realistic, but it'd be really cool if we could get back to the days where there were 40 plus, and you'd have, people from sports cars and people from the short tracks and, ex-Formula One drivers coming over to give it a try. And you see what's going on with NASCAR and the whole controversy with 2311, and who knows how that's going to play out. And I get the, you want to give the team owners something of value, but at the same time, I wonder if you're making it more difficult for other people to participate.
That's kind of my take on charters from
Right.
the beginning, is that you've kind of made it a club sport, so to speak, walling it off from outsiders, and Prema lucky to basically be able to play a part in it. And hey, at least 2027 we could have a lot of extra entries because there will be a new car the following year. So it's like, run the equipment, make it happen. But who knows what will become of that. All right, before we let you go, this is your chance if you want to sound off or brag or whatever, or any sort of rant you have, IndyCar, have at it.
Yeah, just, I want to thank my wife. She tolerates a lot of IndyCar around the house when the season's going, and even during the off season. So thank you to her, and, I couldn't have done it without you. And I want to say hi to Scott Pruitt's family at home. And beyond that, I don't guess I have too much to say.
I just raised my fist because I was literally in my head thinking, wow, he's doing a Scott Pruitt say hi to the family back home right here. That was next level. Also, smart man to thank the wife. That should get you at least, some race tickets for next year, for sure.
She did go, when did she go? 2008, I believe. So she's been to the 500 once, but I think that was enough for her.
One and done. You got to experience it once, right? And then and you're fine. Let the husband go do whatever he wants. Have an enjoyable weekend. But yeah, you're not. Don't plan an entire month up here. Don't feel like you're missing anything with road course weekend. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely not. For sure. Kory, thanks so much for coming on. Congrats again. I know you've enjoyed, hopefully, your prize pack. Did you get any cool cards in the mix?
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot about that. I appreciate that. And I got a Gordon Johncock, which
nice.
I feel like, top tier. So
nice.
We'd love to buy some around here.
Yeah.
But they ain't for sale.
Well, I mean, this is from the retro ones that we.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Retro and new. So
Sweet.
Very cool.
Yeah. And let's see, the new cards, I think I got I'm used to Pokemon cards. It's not holographic, but, shiny or whatever.
Yes, sure.
Luca Gatto, who ran over Georgina at Barber.
It's sad when you're only known by running somebody over.
A mannequin at that. All right. Well, Kory, we appreciate you coming on. You've had your chance to gloat, talk about IndyCar and whatnot. And we'll look forward to your name, hopefully, again, next year, staying the same and competing for the 2026 New Track Record Podcast IndyCar Fantasy Challenge title.
I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Kory.
Thanks, Kory.
Appreciate it. Bye. Thanks to Kory, our winner. And we apologize if there's a little bit of echo throughout part of that. But, hey, very knowledgeable, obviously a longtime fan. It's good to see and chat with people who love IndyCar. And I reiterate, the whole charter thing is certainly a fascinating conversation where on one hand you're limiting your field, which that's never really been IndyCar's thing. Like, it was kind of open to everyone, but
right.
The costs are the costs, and you have to be able to pay the piper, so to speak. But it's kind of weird that they've gone this more restrictive route.
Yeah, I also get it, though, in the sense that you're trying to add value to teams that, quite frankly, don't have much value.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're trying to put a sum of money on a team, on what it's worth, it's very difficult, or it has been very difficult. I understand why you're doing it, and unfortunately it's taking out definitely is taking out some of the extra entries we could have. But we'll see. There could be a couple charters for sale in the near future. Who knows? We still haven't heard anything definitive from Prema one way or the other, although they don't even have any charters. But there's also been talk about that RLL third car, right? So we'll see. At some point, some of these are going to be up for sale, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes and how much they're potentially worth.
No real major topics to get to this week.
That's it. That's a wrap. Okay.
First true off-season week for us in terms of quiet on the news front. So with that, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can always find us on social media, IndyCar Podcast on Twitter/X, also the same handle on Instagram. On Facebook, search for New Track Record. You can email us, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. We have an email to get to here in a bit. Also, support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord, and download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Also have to shout out from the WELT studios. I didn't get to that earlier. So mailbag time, and let's start with our email. And this is courtesy of Josh. Off-season blues.
That's the title?
Yes, that's the subject line. 2 questions. Is a Juncos Hollinger seat better than a coin seat? Asking for a friend. So let's tackle that first.
No.
I would say no. Now, we did get more clarity on the partnership between Andretti and Coin, and it's not real favorable if you're Coin. They're not
going to be sharing everything. Yeah.
They're not sharing data or anything like that. So this is a very bare bones thing. It feels like, okay, we're Andretti, we're renting the ride out for Dennis Hauger. We'll share some components to help you out. And obviously we thought, that would include engineering data. But
no,
that's not the vibe, which is interesting because Michael Cannon, as far as we know, is with Coin. Now, that could change,
right.
Obviously. He was with Prema to start last offseason, and then that changed. But, yes, I would say a Junco seat is not better than a Coin seat. And then...
well, I think, following that up, because we're talking about Rinus VeeKay, effectively, and the newest rumors are he would be in the seat at Juncos, and the 76, I presume, is you look at Juncos Hollinger, and they've never finished above 16th in points. That was in 2023 with Callum Ilott. And Rinus VeeKay just finished, 12th in points?
Yeah.
We talked about it last week about potentially there being a deal with AJ Foyt that fell through, but it's a significant step down for Rinus VeeKay if he does end up at Juncos.
Well, and that's with Coin being uncompetitive for the most part on ovals this past year, too.
Yeah.
Which I get that the ovals are a third of the schedule, but that's pretty significant. His second question from Josh, what is a better chance of happening, Denver street race or Cleveland street race? I'm going to go Denver. I understand there are questions with a stadium and all that, but there have been discussions and stuff in the works, whereas this Cleveland thing was kind of a, hey, we sent out a survey. Is there interest? And of course there's initial interest, but it doesn't mean a whole lot.
It's like they sent out a Google form.
Yeah.
To click
Survey Monkey.
Yeah, Survey Monkey. They're way far down the line with Denver than Cleveland. But, I feel like if you had to pick one, it would definitely be Denver right now. But as we know, in IndyCar, things change, things happen, and in particular don't happen that maybe should happen. But, I'm going to go Denver right now. Do I expect him in 2027? Whatever all indications are at a year at least, I'll say 2028.
Yeah, I think it already sounds like at least a year added to that. Not a whole lot else in terms of the mailbag, but we do have a couple to get to before we move on to news and notes and wrap things up. Very quick episode, just that kind of week.
Yeah, what do you think about Rinus VeeKay? Could he pull a George Costanza and just show back up at Coin like he didn't quit? Remember when George quit his real estate job and then tried to show back up and how that went? Like, maybe Rinus should just on Monday just show back up at Coin and be like, "Well, you took that serious? You thought I was really leaving? No, I'm back. I'm here." And just see how that goes. What's the worst thing that can happen? They can toss him out again. But yeah, a hint maybe for Rinus VeeKay. Just show up at Coin on Monday. See how it goes.
This from Patrick_Stankus on Twitter. Caught up and listened to last week's episode. Excellent as always. Well, thank you. Thoroughly enjoyed Caleb's mention of the Lusco Dragon Racing Team. Got the Random Split Era diecast on the wall. It is a little Ryan Briscoe Norton 360, the sponsor. That was back when Greenlight did the small cars, but very cool. And then this from Lynn_IndyCar. I think this graph proves my point on our debate, which team won more championships. CGR train will continue to go in 2026. IndyCar posted this. Championship heavyweights since 1994, and it's basically all the titles. And yes, it's excluding IRL era, like in terms of, 96 to 2003 in terms of the IRL, because neither team really involved.
But it was when they were in the same series.
Yeah, Gilles de Ferran 2000, 2001, and then obviously all the kart dominance by Ganassi. But then it's like, okay, once you got to 2003, when everyone's there, is it just 1 year? And Ryan Hunter-Reay in 2012? Is that it?
Yeah.
Like, isn't this more of an indictment on IndyCar and the lack
I think it is.
Like, I get that NASCAR fans and people get frustrated with Hendrick, and now it seems to be Penske year in and year out. But yeah, it's like, oh, this is not a selling point.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, the argument over Penske and Ganassi maybe ignores the greater problem, is that only two teams are winning championships. We've said that time and again, that until another team wins a championship, it's the big two, in our opinion, in IndyCar, for the championship, at least, 500, whatever. But I entertain nobody until you prove it. It's kind of like how I feel, and I have this argument incessantly with my son about Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, because he loves to hype up Lamar Jackson, maybe not as much right now, and he loves to hype up Josh Allen. I said, that's all well and good until they beat the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes when it matters in the playoffs. The Kansas City Chiefs are at the top, and you cannot convince me otherwise. It's the same thing with Penske and Ganassi. Until somebody beats them for a championship, I will entertain nobody else to win a title.
My hot take is maybe the Chiefs just aren't playoff material for the first time. They're old and they're slow and they're just not the same.
Maybe, but
kind of like Penske was that this past season.
But
maybe not so much old, but they had too much going on behind the scenes.
Well, yeah. I mean, as long as Kansas City has Patrick Mahomes and he is Patrick Mahomes, they have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the Patrick Mahomes for Team Penske? Nobody right now. Who is the guy that says, well, Penske's struggling, but at least they have this guy in a seat? You don't feel like that way anymore with Joseph Newgarden, at least in terms of the championship. And we've never felt that way for Scott McLaughlin.
There was hype for him, but yeah, no,
right.
It was, you got to truly contend to get there. Obviously, Ganassi has two of those guys. So that is the mailbag. Quick and short, we move to news and notes, and you kind of talked about first VK, who Pruitt said he expects. I thought that was interesting verbiage.
Yeah.
He expects. I feel like that
because that's all that's left.
Yes. There's not really a whole lot to go past. Also, Pruitt did remind that Honda and Chevy are not confirmed past 2026. He also kind of pumped the brakes on an Andretti resurgence. Nathan O'Rourke and Rob Edwards changing roles. Ron Rzuski not going to be able to start until January, so the same deal as Will Power in that. And that's really about it.
I find
in the mailbag.
Yeah, I find it interesting about the cars and the OEMs. And my point to you was, well, Chevy isn't going to sign an extension until it knows what it's going to be responsible for beginning in 2027. So it doesn't want to lock itself into a deal, and then it comes back to where they have to provide engines for the entire field if Honda leaves, because Chevy is going to be in a position of bargaining power if they're the only OEM in 2027. So they could absolutely fleece IndyCar, and they're not going to sign a deal until they know exactly what situation the series is in. So I don't have any worries that GM is leaving, but it's just good business practice. What are you going to ask from us? What do you need from us? Because we're not going to sign on the dotted line until we know exactly.
They're not going to negotiate against themselves.
Exactly.
Basically, is your point. I think that is interesting.
Chevy could, if let's say Honda says we're out, Chevy's going to come to the bargaining table and say, so you really need us, don't you? Well, this is what we want. And they're going to ask for a lot.
Couple of Indy Lights announcements. Jordan Missig back with Able Motorsports, 6 top 10s last season with Able, so he is back. Also, Lockie Hughes is back with Andretti in Lights. And of note, and something that Arnie Shribben pointed out on social media, he is the Andretti IndyCar reserve driver for 2026. He will test in IndyCar this Monday. In fact, the full test list for that event, which of course includes Mick Schumacher with Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing, James Rowe getting the call-up. He spent several years in Lights. He will test with Juncos Hollinger Racing. ECR will test Christian Rasmussen and Alexander Rossi. Dale Coyne will test Dennis Hauger. I mentioned Lockie Hughes and Andretti. And then AJ Foyt will test Caio Collet again, which I think would point to promising signs on that front.
Yeah, I would agree. Maybe more opportunities for Lights drivers than we thought just a couple weeks ago.
And then Chip Ganassi Racing expanding their Lights program to 4 cars.
We had heard that was going to happen, so
confirmation.
Really cool to see that happen.
And Mick Schumacher, speaking of this test, which is coming up on Monday at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course, Marshall Pruitt having this story in Racer.com, that he is actually going to spend the next several days, as we record this on Thursday, October 9th, at the Ray Hall shop, basically kind of trying to soak everything in. He's doing the seat fit coming up before the weekend, then talking with engineers, try to get a head start ahead of everything in the coming days before the test.
It sounds more and more of a possibility that if the test goes well, he could be in a seat, which would still be very surprising to me. But it'd be great.
I would agree.
It'd be great to have Mick Schumacher in the field for sure.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. I mean, he brings obviously a huge social media following and fan following. That's obvious, but also a level of talent for a guy who hasn't had a lot of single-seater time in recent years. When you keep being a test or reserve driver in Formula One, there's just not a lot to go off of on that.
Right. And look, I know there's some people that love to hate on quote-unquote F1 washouts. While money is still king in F1, just like every other racing series, it is a lot more difficult to get into Formula One with next to no talent. It's much easier in IndyCar, especially in the past, to get to the pinnacle of open wheel racing in North America with next to no talent than it is in Formula One. Like Mick Schumacher is a tremendously talented driver. Didn't work out in Formula One. Some of it's on him. Some of it could be circumstance, right? And who you're with and when you are with them. So I think any Formula One driver that makes his way over to IndyCar is a positive, because I think every single one of them has some semblance of talent because they've reached that level.
Timing is everything in F1. I feel like, correct, compared to even other motorsports. You have to be really, like, you can have all the talent in the world, and we see this all the time with F1. I mean, a lot of F2 guys just not getting shots. I mean, Felipe Drugovich, right? I mean, there's a recent example of a guy who's had a lot of success in F2, just never really gotten the F1 chance.
Look, has Mick Schumacher been helped by his last name? Yes, absolutely. Is that the only reason he got to the pinnacle of motorsport? No, I don't think so at all. So that's just how I feel. I mean, he's won F3 with Prema several years ago. So, he was with Haas when Haas was just freaking terrible. Mm-hmm. So he raced with Prema in F2, won an F2 championship with Prema. So this is a guy with talent. Okay, so I think it'd be tremendous for IndyCar to add him to the paddock.
And speaking of testing, David Malukas had his first test with Team Penske in the number 12 Horizon car at Gateway just a couple of days ago, earlier this week. And a couple other team-related notes. Marshall Pruitt had a good story on Racer about the Andretti Coyne partnership, and it's not like your typical partnership. This is basically Dennis Hauger's on loan from Andretti, and it's components. It's not engineering. That's really kind of what we see between Ganassi and Schenck and other partnerships. Yeah. This is really just a component thing, which is surprising.
Yeah, it's not as advantageous as we initially thought, but maybe the way forward. So it's what we expected. It wasn't what we expected. Now we'll have to see what gains, if any, now are gained in 2026 because of this relationship.
Yeah, and again,
do you feel
no second car obviously decided yet?
Do you feel that the deal between Penske and Foyt with Malukas has now opened the doors? I don't, at least in the near future, IndyCar going to a pure junior team formula like we see in Formula One. But I think you're going to get closer and closer to that. I think you're going to see more and more teams, especially if they're the haves and have-nots in the series, and those have-nots need money, that the haves are going to give them money to run drivers for them. And maybe that's, unfortunately, takes some of the development out of younger formulas. You'd love to see every team. You'd love to see McLaren have a lights team. Penske have a lights team, right? In addition to Ganassi and Andretti.
Well, yeah, a lot of people, and rightfully so, but Penske waits for talent to be developed, and then they take them on the IndyCar side.
Right, which is fine, but now they've found, hey, we definitely don't need to do that because we'll just pay a team to run our driver that we want.
Well, and they already have, like, I believe Max Garcia, if I'm not mistaken, is under Penske contract. Obviously, Miles Rowe is
at least they're
affiliated
racing in the junior formulas.
Yes.
Right.
So they're hand-selecting their drivers instead of running a team to try to develop talent.
Right. You hope it's not a step towards seeing a Formula One-esque setting where you have your factory teams and your junior teams.
Yeah, but it kind of feels like that's what's already been happening for a few years.
Yeah, and I
get that Shank is not Ganassi, but between their partnerships with Andretti and now Ganassi, they're getting access to data, and they are the best of the rest outside of the top 4 teams in the series and have been in terms of pace several years now. Still waiting for that second win. I mean, they won an Indy 500, and that was obviously a big part of that was partnering with Andretti.
You just hope it doesn't go to the line where a team, let's say a junior team, let's say Shank, they're basically running future Ganassi drivers, right? Just kind of like Racing Bulls is in Formula One for Red Bull. It's either guys that have been removed from Red Bull seats or potential replacements in the future for a Red Bull seat. So you just hope you don't initially or don't inevitably get that in IndyCar. And I think that goes back to the relative health of the teams, especially the midfield and back, is making sure they're financially set to where they don't need to take money and agree with a big team and say, yeah, we'll run your driver, you pay us, and we'll do it for a year until you want them. I just hope this is not a growing trend that we see going forward.
And then other bit of team news, AO Racing USA, which is a sports car team. You know them because of the Dinosaur.
Those
Rexy,
are cool cars.
Yeah, cool cars. They are considering entering other forms of racing in the coming years, including NASCAR and IndyCar. Starting point, but I mean, there's a lot of hoops and things to jump through before you're truly making that happen.
I think if they do want to endeavor into IndyCar, I'd love to see them in the ladder somewhere. Maybe dabble in some lights first. Go from there.
For sure. Other bit of news, the latest on the Alex Palou McLaren lawsuit. Some juicy details have come out here and there. First off, McLaren racing boss Zach Brown has denied destroying evidence in relation to his team's legal case against IndyCar star Alex Palou. Former McLaren IndyCar team manager Gavin Ward telling a contact that McLaren used WhatsApp's disappearing messages. Adam Stern pulling that from a motorsportmagazine.com story. Then this snippet that I saw, that Lore IndyCar polled Brown accused of trivializing driver negotiations with documents relating to Alexander Rossi's prospective contract extension with McLaren's IndyCar team, which ultimately never came to pass. The court heard that Brown and McLaren's current team principal, Tony Kanaan, agreed during mid-2024 to replace the American with young Danish star Christian Lundgaard, but at the same time continued correspondence with Rossi's father, who's also his manager, about a potential renewal for the 2016 Indy 500 winner. An email from Brown to Kanaan was read out to the courtroom, where he said that the protracted contract negotiations with Rossi would be a, quote, Fun one to exit, end quote, adding a laughing emoji symbol. DeMarco accused Brown of joking about the situation. I assume that's someone on the bench.
I don't know. Is this anything? This is what happens in motorsports.
Right? I mean, you pull any emails
yeah,
in
right?
an organization, you're going to have something
yeah,
like
right?
this.
And we knew that there was going to be some details that came out that maybe weren't too flattering, but I also don't think that behavior is unique to McLaren or Kory Kanaan or Zach Brown. Now, when you initially said destroying evidence, I pictured Zach Brown behind the paddock with like a little metal bucket, just like burning stuff or like shredding documents, you know?
No, it's deleting WhatsApp messages.
Yeah, we're in the area of deleting messages off an app, but it doesn't make me want to pay attention anymore to that than to that. But those things also kind of don't know what that has to do with Alex Palou's contract or lack thereof.
Zach Brown has denied, quote, stringing along racing drivers involved in negotiations.
But I also think it probably happens both on the same, and it goes both ways. Look, racing drivers may string along Team A when they're talking to Team B behind the scenes that, let's say Team A and driver are a combination for a season. Driver is saying, yeah, I want to return for 26, but he's also talking to Team B for an option for 26. Like, what's the difference? It happens.
The fun thing for us is because it went to court, we get discovery out of it, and we get great details.
We get all the sort of details.
The juicy stuff that's hidden behind the scenes. It's really not in anyone's best interest for these details to be court record.
No,
obviously.
But
here we are.
Yeah, you could have settled out of court and it wouldn't have come up.
Scott Dixon is competing this weekend at Road Atlanta, I believe with Meyer Shank Racing, so competing on the IMSA side for Petit Le Mans. And Ed Carpenter Racing. This is really cool, and this is the kind of stuff I wish IndyCar teams did more of. They're doing something called Shop Series Off-Season Events Lineup. First, it starts on Thursday, October 23rd, 6 to 8 p.m., a race day hat embroidery class. That's a ticketed event.
Okay.
They have Cars and Coffee, Saturday, November 11th, 9 to 11 a.m., open to the public. A toy drive that benefits Central Indiana families, Thursday, December 4th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., open to the public. Cocktails and Cockpits, Peel and Pour Mixology class, Thursday, January 29th, 6 to 8 p.m., 21-plus ticketed event. And a Bead Bash, a bracelet-making social gathering, Thursday, February 12th, 6 to 8 p.m., also a ticketed event. All the events at their race shop on Georgetown Road in Indianapolis. But really cool to not only say, hey, it's not just an open house, but hey, we're going to do these events for the off season to get people in, learn about the race team, help fans kind of get some behind the scenes.
Well, even some people that wouldn't normally pay attention to racing or a race team, right? Like bracelet making.
Yes.
Obviously
great
trying
for kids.
To get, kids, especially young girls and stuff, right? To try to get them, or at least give them something to do while the race fans are checking out the shop.
Very cool. It's not just, an open house. It's activities and events. So I think that's maybe this is something that could become a trend, because outside of, maybe once a year a team does an open house, like that's about all you get in terms of being able to go into a race shop and tour stuff. So I think that's cool. Also, IndyCar is hiring a social media intern. You can check out that link. Indy44 posted it on Twitter. And then finally, I thought this would be an interesting thing to discuss before we get to our random split air driver of the week. NASCAR increasing horsepower for Cup Series events at road courses and ovals less than a mile and a half. It'll go to 750 for 2026. Now, I know there are a lot of issues with the car of tomorrow, or what is it? Next gen car? Is that where they're at now?
Yeah, next gen.
And IndyCar obviously has different horsepower requirements, a much lighter car for the record. But I just thought this is fascinating, and with IndyCar, I mean, you look at what they do horsepower wise. It is. Well, I mean, it depends on the track, obviously. 550 horsepower on speedways, 575 on a mile and a half, 650 on short ovals and road street courses, 50 with push to pass. I don't think that's taking into account the hybrid unit either.
Correct.
So Indy cars are much lighter than a Cup car, but I thought an interesting talking point for the podcast. Look, Cup is going to more horsepower, which I think is a smart move on their part to improve the racing. Is IndyCar... I mean, I get they say they're going to do that with the next car, but like, what's a target number? We're not going to see 1,000 horsepower again, like the peak kart days 25 years ago. But if we could approach 900 on a road and street course and a short oval, I mean, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I just I don't know if that's on the horizon. You have one OEM that may be exiting, and the other one that's going to be very responsible for every car, and the more horsepower you add, the more pressure and stuff on the engine, reliability may be going down a little bit. So NASCAR not really in that position to worry about the OEMs because they have several. I think IndyCar's in a different spot. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes for Cup. I also kind of look at it and say, okay, well, if you raise it for everybody, what's it change? Type thing, you know what I mean? So everybody has 100 extra horsepower. So everybody's going a little faster, but they're still the same. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too far into it.
Final note, apparently Driven is on Tubi. I think we've discussed this before. But just in case.
I watch things on Tubi, and let me just say that Driven is in a perfect location on Tubi. In terms of obscure, borderline bad movies, it will fit right in the library of Tubi.
Yes.
I get some of the most bizarre stuff pop up on Tubi, like suggestions. Like, what would you possibly think? Like, Tubi's great. Lately, I watch old war movies, like from the 50s and 60s. I'll feast on that. And they're like, since you watched The Longest Day, here's one. And it's just like some like a 80s erotica outer space thing. It's so weird. It's so weird. And then I watch it. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it belongs on Tubi. We'll say that.
No good tweets. Everyone took the week off, so it's time for our random split error driver of the week.
Well, one thing I wanted to address, and I sent this to you, and I think for people that are looking forward to the video game, there's details coming out on NASCAR 25 with iRacing, and supposedly there's not going to be an online career or season mode for NASCAR 25, which for an entity in iRacing that is online. Now you can do online like individual races, but there will be no online career or season mode, along with some other things on it. So there are no ARCA standalone tracks or fantasy tracks. I'm just going to throw in this information out based on will there be similar things for the IndyCar game next year? Could we see the IndyCar game and there be no online dynasty, online season mode? Will we have no real alternative tracks? Well, for instance, Daytona being on the IndyCar game, or even like fake tracks. Like I used to play NASCAR Thunder and there was a 3.5 mile super speedway called Tiburon Raceway. It was on there. It was amazing. So it was just some notes online because we really haven't seen much about the NASCAR 25 game that's supposed to be released this month, I think. But that will be telling. Also, did we talk much about the Blackbird 66 thing last week?
No.
J.R. Hildebrand. I know there was a lot of responses in the mailbag. It's just a non-starter for me. I know it was the same thing for you. Basically, the precedent was an IndyCar with no wings. And the problem is it will go a lot faster on the straights, but slow as hell in the corners.
I just don't think that will work with today's fans.
Here's my thing: it's 2025. We've in all forms of motorsports, we've narrowed it down to what we have, right? With downforce and wings and all that stuff, whether it's Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR, whatever. It's like, it almost feels like a step backwards. Like, why would you take something away that is the best for racing? Is it?
Well, you're not going to go backwards in technology, right?
Right. I don't know. I think it's hey, we can go back to the glory days with this. It's like, well, the reason why we're not racing cars with no wings is because cars with wings is better. You know what I mean? Like, so that was kind of my thing. It was a non-starter for me.
It's like, it's cool as a concept, but the actual implementation,
Right.
I just don't know if that's going to work. I mean, they have vintage series,
Right,
that
yeah,
race, and I
just-
get that that's different. It's not quite the same in terms of going full throttle.
For sure.
But I don't think there's a demand. Like, I don't think IndyCar needs a rethink to that level. I just think they need a new car. Like, I don't think it's...
We don't need a... Yeah.
It's not like we need a complete rethink and reworking of what an IndyCar is. Just come out with a new car.
And look, the designs of that car, that's not picking up any new fans. Talk
No.
about dramatic cars like the Delta Wing. Okay, that was dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
This is not dramatic. It just looks like a car with no wings. Doesn't move
So
the
a
needle for us.
60s era F1 car.
Yeah,
Or
and
IndyCar.
the reason why they don't race those cars anymore is because they aren't as good as the cars now. If you want to go watch IndyCar where in the short shoots at the 500 they're going 85.
150.
Yeah, I don't know, 100 mile an hour. Okay, maybe that's for you, but not us.
I'm sure we'll be told why we're wrong, but
I welcome it.
yes. All right.
What we got? Split air driver of the week.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to the mid 90s, late 90s, but a guy that his first race and his only race in kart was in 1989, but then he returned with a vengeance starting in 1996. Mr. Scott Harrington.
Hey.
How about that? Most recently raced for Brayton Racing in 2002 and finished 21st at Michigan, I do believe. But this is what I found interesting about Scott Harrington. Many things. I have never seen a driver, at least in the quote-unquote modern era, that attempted to qualify for the Indianapolis 500 7 times and made it just once. His only start in the Indianapolis 500 was 1996. Started 32nd and finished 15th. Every other effort, 89, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2002, did not qualify. Now, what was interesting is in his first season in the IndyCar Series, 1996, he raced for his own team, Della Penna Motorsports, and finished 15th in the Indianapolis 500. I thought this was interesting. He had a best IRL finish first of 4th at Phoenix in 1999, total of 14 series starts, which is the fewest total starts by any IRL Rookie of the Year, because he won Rookie of the Year in 1999, running his full season with his own team, and had that top 5 at Phoenix. And despite failing to qualify for the 500, suffering serious injuries at Texas 1, won Rookie of the Year honors by a slim margin over Robbie McGee. This is what I found interesting. He's the only person to ever compete in Formula Atlantic, the original Indy Lights, the Infinity Pro Series, kart, and IRL.
Wow.
Only driver to do all 5. A throwaway line in his Wikipedia bio: his career was affected by arrests and convictions for driving while intoxicated. Okay. He's one of the few American drivers to compete in the big 3 of American motorsports: Indy 500, 24 hours of Daytona, the 12 hours of Sebring. Obviously, that list has grown significantly over the recent years. He's one of the original instructors at the Mid-Ohio School, and as of August of 2022, still held the position. One of his drivers that he has trained is Jacob Abel, and has a relationship with Abel's father going back several years. So still around, Scott Harrington lives in Indianapolis, born in Louisville, Kentucky, 61 years old. He started 14 races overall in his IRL career, best finish of 4th at Phoenix, and attempted to qualify for the Indianapolis 500 7 different times, only started 1 time and finished 15th in that race. Mr. Scott Harrington, this week's Random Split Era Driver of the Week.
And what's interesting to me is that he made the race in 96, which was, of course, the first year of the split, and was 15th in the 500, and then didn't make it after that. Like, yes, he did attempt in 89, during, the peak of the kart era pre-split. But the year where you would think, okay, it's kind of chaos, and there's still a lot of entries in the 96 Indy 500. I mean, there's a laundry list of drivers who did not qualify despite, everything happening with, the sport at that time. But I just think it is fascinating that that's the year that he did make it, and not, one of the later years when you think the field maybe would have thinned out just a tad.
Yeah, just a little bit, but it just broke through early, and it looked like maybe he'd be a regular, but couldn't make it again. Very interesting.
Yes. All right, that does it for us. We'll be back next week for Justin Kinney for our 2025 IndyCar Fantasy Challenge winner on GridRivals, Kory. I am Caleb Hatch. This has been another edition of New Track Record Podcast.